Jew and Gentile podcast. I am your host, Chris Katolka, and with me is none other than the Jewish sage himself, right in Toronto, Canada, Steve Herzig. Steve, we're not in America anymore.
We are not in America, Chris, and I gotta tell you, I only feel happy today. No angry, just no sad, just happy.
Just happy. That's good.
That's good. Out of the last three issues?
Yeah.
We don't do issues.
No, we do episodes.
Out of the last three episodes, I was happy and sad. I was happy and angry. Now I'm just happy.
I love
Chris,
it.
you should see the view. You can't see the view.
I know, I've got my back to the view. Hold on, here we go, everybody. All right, welcome in. That's right, we are in Toronto, Canada, actually at our headquarters for our Canadian division of the Friends of Israel. We've got some special guests, and if you're watching the video right now, you can already see them because we're only working with one camera on the road. Your wife was sitting next to me, and I'm setting up my camera. She goes, "Where's the cameras?" And I go, "This is the camera." She goes, "One camera? One?" I go, "We're on the road. We're touring."
Chris,
you know?
we're actually here, and I'm sitting next to the chairman, but we're here for a board report. So I want to ask the question, is this B-O-A-R-D or B-O-R-E-D? Board report. We're having a board meeting. Dave, you're the chairman of our board. Are we B-O-R-E-D or B-O-A-R-D?
Well, you got to get this microphone. Oh, there you go. That's fine.
Depends on the time of day, I think.
Yeah.
And late afternoon, it might be the O-R-E-D.
Hey, you know,
there you go from our chairman.
We actually pushed this board meeting back too, so maybe we'll have a little more energy by the end. You know, normally it starts at 1 p.m. Is that when it starts? Is 1?
We usually have started, but Chris, we don't have turkey. That's why they won't serve turkey, because that stuff, that tryptophan or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Boom, you're put out.
Yeah, 100%. Well, listen, as we get started, we are in Toronto, Canada. Steve, we love Canada. We
love it.
The people are so nice. Last night, we had to go into Walmart, you and I, to get a little headphones because I forgot them. And the lady that checked us out, so nice. I mean,
she greets us with, "How has your day been?" Who does that?
And it's 8:00 at night. How has your day been? Amazing.
I said to her, that was so nice.
We were shocked.
In fact, her boss, she was off on a break. He did not want to wait on anybody. There's nobody else but us. He could have checked us out. He said, before you go on your break, come here. I said, and you greeted us so nice. You're not angry at us? In Canada, the number one line is, "I'm sorry."
That's amazing. I love that line. I love a good "I'm sorry," you know? It fits perfectly with the Jew and Gentile podcast and the guilt that
we're sorry we're on.
That's right. We're sorry all the time. All right, well, listen, we want to bring in Karen McQuan. I like to call her K-Mac. Karen McQuan from the Friends of Israel. Karen, go ahead and take that mic and pull it up like this. You can hold it like this, and we like to say kiss the mic. Hello, Karen. How are you?
Hi, Chris and Steve and Dave. I'm good. I'm so happy to be on the podcast.
This is amazing. All right, so Karen, explain to everybody what you do with the Friends of Israel in Canada. What's your position?
Yes. So I am the office manager for our head office here. I've been with Friends of Israel since November 2021, so about more than 2 years. And what I do is I help manage the office. So I oversee our accounting team.
Chris, she's the macher of the office.
I'm telling you, big time macher. She does so amazing. You do an amazing job, K-Mac. We love it.
I love my team. I love working with them and encouraging them. And so I oversee accounting, our shipping department, our ministry services team, who do a fantastic job talking to our constituents. And then we also recently hired a marketer. So just overseeing all of that, making sure things are organized. I love spreadsheets. And yes.
Do you let people know that you love spreadsheets?
Yes.
Is that something that you put down and let people know?
Actually, people just tell me when I show them my work, and they're like, "Yep, you're the spreadsheet queen." So
can I ask you something? Do you have? I know that you probably have a lot of spreadsheets for the office and organizing. Do you do personal spreadsheets? Like, do you have like a folder, a personal K-Mac folder?
I do. I have a budget one. There's John Wilcox saying hello. Hi, John. I do have a personal. I have my budget spreadsheet, so like my own personal budget.
Okay.
And then obviously, we're going to talk about the Poland trip.
Yes.
And so I did have a whole checklist of items to bring. So I made a whole spreadsheet out of it. Of these are the items that I need to bring for my traveling. This was my first time in Europe.
Okay, so you are spreadsheet queen, and this is what we wanted to talk about because you recently went on our Encounter Poland trips. Let me catch our listeners up here. Encounter is a ministry that we have in North American Ministries at Friends of Israel, where we like to invite Christians to encounter the Jewish community. And we do that in the northeast of America, one of the largest Jewish populations in the world. We bring Christians to New York City, to the Hasidic sections of Brooklyn, Manhattan. They go to Philadelphia to a Shabbat service. They do volunteer work at the Jewish Community Center. They just ran one, Steve, a couple days ago. It was fantastic. But we had we were getting a kind of excited because we thought we could take Encounter on the road. And so we went Encounter abroad. We went Encounter Poland, where young adults had an opportunity to encounter the Jewish community, the history of the Holocaust in Poland. And that's what you did. You were a part of that team.
That is right.
We actually teamed up, Chris, and Karen, I want you to comment on it when you tell us about the trip. We teamed up with our international team.
Yes.
And so this was a joint effort of North American Ministries with International Ministries. And so while you were doing your spreadsheets on this side, and organized, by the way, did a great job, Alyssa and Ty Perry, masterful, but Timothy Rabbinic on the Polish side was organizing as well. How did all that come together?
Yeah, well, honestly, it was just so incredible how the whole team worked together. And for this to happen, I know this was our first encounter abroad. And just to see the vision come to life and to be able to be one of the first batches to go on it, huge privilege. I was so thankful to go. And everyone, I know everyone put in so much prayer. I know prayer was the top of it all. And then, just the way the itinerary was laid out, it was so great. We got to see so many different things. We started, I don't know if I can start now, but
please, go ahead.
First day we landed in Philadelphia. We got to see the Witherspoon building.
Tell them what that is, though.
The Witherspoon building is in Philadelphia. Right now, I believe it's kind of a hotel. We didn't get to go in, but we got to see the seals outside. So what it is that's where Friends of Israel was founded in 1938. There was a group of Presbyterian businessmen and pastors that came together during September 1st is November 1938 when Hitler attacked Poland and the Jewish people were already facing persecution and fear. And so these group of Presbyterian men came together and they said, what can we do? What can we do? How can we help the Jewish people? That I believe God 100% put that desire in their heart to stand with them. And so they formed the Friends of Israel Relief Committee in 1938, and that's where it was formed.
Killing it.
No wonder she's the big mouser here in Canada.
You, that was amazing. Good job.
The way the whole trip was laid out, all the different places that we went to, it was just all perfectly laid out in terms of, okay, we start here, this is where we see. And then after that, we went to the headquarters in the U.S., got to meet the wonderful team there. And then from there, we went to Poland. So actually, before that, we went to a synagogue in Philadelphia.
Did you like that?
It was a 2.5-hour service, and I learned so much. This was my first time in a synagogue. I got to see, they were singing songs from their book. And then there was a wall where the Torah was behind. So they brought it out. And then so the whole time I got to experience that. And then after we had a meal with them. And so, and it was so encouraging because everyone was seated together, having a meal. How
did they receive you at the team?
Oh, they were so happy to receive us. And you know what? Going in, there was a security guard there. So, yep. And, it was sad to see, but you know what? They are fearful for their lives because of everything happening on October 7th and onwards. But they were so happy. They said to us that we are so thankful for Friends of Israel and for you standing with us and even just showing your love and even just being interested in our service. We didn't just go for the dinner. We actually went and participated in the service.
Yeah, that was a Passover. Event.
Yes, yep. That's right. That's Passover.
Fantastic.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I have to say this too for our listeners. We are the Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry, and we are known for going to Israel. That is something that we are known for. We've been taking tours and trips and volunteerism to Israel since the 1970s.
1977 was our first tour to Israel.
That's right. But the heart of Friends of Israel is Israel, but the heart of Friends of Israel actually starts in Poland. When after the war, and even during the war, a lot of the ministries that we had post Holocaust were ministering to those Jewish people in Poland, and helping Jewish people from Eastern Europe who were coming over to America. And so the heart of our first executive director, Dr. Victor Buxbazen, who was Polish,
Warsaw Polish man.
that's right.
Yes.
He became a believer
And
in
Helena,
Warsaw.
a Gentile Polish woman.
That's right.
Two of our longest or first workers that we had come out of Poland.
We didn't have, I think, Zvi in Israel until the 1950s, but we already had Dr. Buxbazen, Helena. They were already doing ministry early on in the history of Friends of Israel. So, yes, Israel is so important to us, but you going on this trip to Poland is so important because it's kind of going back to our roots as to
Yes.
who we are as an organization and what we do.
Definitely. And yeah, like I got to see also like kind of the fruits of Helena and Dr. Buxbagen, because we stayed at the Warsaw farm, which is actually like managed by the Kurs, Anya Kur and her husband. And her dad is the one who purchased this farm, which is a whole miraculous story. But that family, the Kurs, were greatly influenced by Helena.
Wow.
And they joined Jewish ministry because of Helena and her heart. And now the Polish team so we got the Kurs taking care of the Warsaw farm. We got the Cieslers, who are also in Wisla. They also support. And then we have Timothy Rabbinic. Emmanuel
Chris,
is joined.
She's speaking
And so-
Polish already. Look at the names.
But the work that they do there, it was so incredible. We have vans that FOI has provided for the ministry there, and they help. Over the years, they've been helping with the Jewish people there, supporting them, and they even do children's camps there, and they help Jewish children every summer. And so in part of our trip, all the young adults that went, we got to actually even do some volunteer work on the farm, putting together swings for the upcoming camp, painting benches, things like that. And so just seeing Helena's kind of legacy, I got to see that. And the Polish team is doing an incredible job there.
Well, so we have the service part, a very important part. We on the Jew and Gentile podcast talked a lot about being one of the few evangelical groups on the March for the Living. And that, at least to me, would seem to be a highlight of the trip. Could you comment a little bit about that?
Absolutely, and also that March of the Living came towards the end of the trip, and so I was so glad the way it was laid out, because before we went on the March of the Living, we had been to Majdanek concentration camp and death camp.
Slower for our listeners, and especially old ones like me. Say that camp title again.
Majdanek.
Madonic.
Sorry,
No,
I am totally not.
No, you are.
Majdanek.
It's very hard. I learned that from putting the itinerary together. Madonic. No.
Majdanek. And you know what? There's a J in there, and I hear that the J is silent.
That's a hard one.
Don't say the J.
Yep.
Majdanek. Concentration and extermination camp. And we spent a whole day there. And that was a few days before us doing the March of the Living from Auschwitz I to Auschwitz II Birkenau.
How somber was your group? I'm sure you, as young people, you were having fun on the trip over there and on the bus and all that. But now you're in this camp. Can you describe the atmosphere of your group?
I will say, even in the bus, I have to say our group was super energetic, every single day. But the day we were going, because we actually joined another delegation of Jewish young adults who were coming to Poland to the March of the Living to learn about the Holocaust. And many of them were headed to Israel after. And so we shared a bus with them. So Christian Evangelical Group and them. And it was such a blessing. They welcomed us with such open arms. They were so happy and so just thankful that we were standing with them. But that day, even just sitting in the bus and going to Auschwitz, it was just quiet. We were all just quiet. I think we were just, having read about it. Preparing for this trip, I want to thank Ty and Alyssa. There was a lot of meetings beforehand preparing for the trip, lots of prayer. They told us to watch Schindler's List, read about Zvi, Kalisher, and I was doing a lot of research on the camps and kind of, but to actually be there, you cannot put it into words. The feeling that it invokes when you're actually there is unsurpassed. Like, it's surreal. So anyway, it was very somber. Everyone was really quiet. One, it was kind of sad as we're going into Auschwitz, our bus. There was a little Palestinian group there, and they were protesting with their flags. And it
was that at Auschwitz that they were doing?
That was at Auschwitz as our bus is going in.
Were they saying anything that you could understand?
They weren't. I don't think they were saying anything, but they had their flags up, and it was about, I'd say maybe 10 people. But it was very sad to see. It's like, this is the place where more than 1 million Jewish people were exterminated and killed, and here we are just doing a march to just remember and to really just say, like, we don't want this to happen again, and here's this little demonstration. So that was pretty sad to see. But so then our bus went in, and then all of us, so everyone's gathering, and this time they had around the people leading the front of the March of the Living. There were several Holocaust survivors that were leading the march. And so when we were there, we got to actually speak to a lot of the young adults that were a part of the other delegation that we had joined.
The Jewish
delegation.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were just asking, like, what brings you here? And we got to tell them we're with Friends of Israel, and we are Christians who love the Jewish people. And we are here to stand with you on this march, to walk with you on this march, but also our trip has been to learn about the Holocaust. And I think it's so important as Christians to, if it is possible for you to go on this trip, I know we're planning again to bring this back. If you have the opportunity, go. Because the thing is, I think it strengthens your testimony to the Jewish people, because it shows them that you actually care to learn about the Holocaust. It's so sad. In the schools, they're not even really teaching about this stuff. But I think it really shows your credibility and your heart to them to show them that this is your history and I want to learn about it. And because knowledge it's so important, because nowadays there's so much deception, right? There's so much, look at what's happened October 7th. There's so much bad press on Israel. It's not based on facts. It's not based on truth. And so learning about Holocaust, learning about these things is so important.
Dave Benner, chairman of the BOARD, and we're thankful that you're part of the Canadian board as well. Describe how you feel, your heartbeat as you hear Karen. You're overseeing as a board member, the International Ministry, and also part of the Canadian board. You're listening to Karen. Share with our 7 listeners. Sorry, only 7 listeners there.
He's like, what I come here for?
At least tell them what's going on in your mind as you listen to Karen.
Well, first of all, I'm jealous. I would have liked to have been on that trip. But it's just to hear the interaction with our Jewish friends is so important, that you establish those connections, those relationships, and that's what we're all about. Because as I see what's happening in the world and the anti-Semitism that is growing and growing and growing, that I feel they need friends, friends of Israel, and other friends too, evangelicals. They're coming to recognize over the years that we are their friends, that we support them, that we want to be able to help them, and just recognize that we understand that they need a friend. We want to be that friend, and we want to reach out to them. And so what Karen is describing is one of those opportunities that we have, and we have many opportunities, but that's just one of them, and it's just a wonderful connection that we have there. And I do want to make one correction. I am the vice chair. When I crossed the border to Canada,
that's right.
I became the vice chair. Bill King is our Canadian director, and Bill's from Vancouver, and he is the chairman in this house.
Okay.
I stand corrected once again. It won't be the first time, and nor the last.
That's good. No, but Dave does oversee the board in the U.S.
Yes, he does.
Yes,
he does.
We'll transfer that title up here for a moment for the podcast.
That's right. But Chris, you and I and Dave, as we listen, we're kvelling. We already had that as a Yiddish word. I don't know which episode. Kvel means your heart is overjoyed. And we don't overjoy at the Holocaust. We overjoy that we're able to teach another generation. We're overjoyed that there's a group of young people now who have impacted Jewish people by their presence and have been impacted themselves by their being there. That just, in North American Ministries, Chris, I think it's helpful as we should segue with Karen here, who also went to the movie. we took Equip to the movies, and Karen went because she heard we were going.
That's right. You went to go see
And
Commandant
of course,
Shadow.
being the macher she is, Karen, you took. It wasn't just you who went. You
our
told the
whole head office went.
The
Our
whole
head office.
Chris, we can't even do that. We
She
can't
shut
get anybody to do anything at our office. Karen just said, "We're going."
Shut it down.
And they all go.
Shut down the office. We're going to see the Commandant Shadow.
That's right.
Sour.
That's right.
Tell our folks what we did. We had interviewed Kai, but I don't think we've talked about, or did we? Last week? Did
We might have, but I'll just mention really quick that it fits in perfectly because Karen, you went to Auschwitz.
Yes.
You marched between Auschwitz II and Auschwitz I and Auschwitz II Birkenau with Jewish people. You saw that iconic image of
Yes.
the railroad cars going in.
Yes.
You know that we saw the same. The movie highlighted, I think, kind of what you went through.
Yes.
But on the redeeming factor of it, that here we were just talking about this yesterday. That here is the commandant of Auschwitz.
Yes.
Who was the mastermind behind systematically murdering more than 1 million
and
Jewish
wrote
people.
about it freely while he was in prison. He
100
wrote a
Yes.
whole book.
He wrote his autobiography about it. And then just 2 generations later, his grandson is a Bible-believing Christian who says, I have placed my faith in the Jewish Messiah. And then he goes on to share his love and passion for Israel and the Jewish people based on what the scriptures teach. It's a redeeming story of what
It is.
only Christ can do. And I'm glad. I always have been telling people this movie that we saw is the heartbeat of the Friends of Israel. It's about
Yeah.
building bridges between the Jewish community and the Christian community. But at the heart of it, we don't do it on our own. We do it because of what Christ has done for us. And that is right at the heart of the movie with Pastor Kai. So it's fantastic. I want before we start talking about the scriptures, because D-Day is here today.
We
It's
do want to
June
talk
6th
about
as
that,
we're
yep.
doing this. But can you just give 30 seconds the big takeaway for you, Karen, especially as someone who serves with Friends of Israel in Canada?
Yeah. It's hard to wrap up in 30 seconds, but I will do my
Especially
best.
for Karen.
Yeah.
That's right. I think the biggest takeaway for me was, I think going to this trip in light of what's happening with October 7th was extra impactful because it showed me that the Jewish people really need friends. And, you know, being at the March of the Living, they actually, in the ceremony, they said, we are so thankful there were a few Christian organizations that they were there. And we're like, we're so thankful to you guys. Thank you for being a friend. And so, I mean, if there's any churches, if listeners, if you know your church, if they want to join a delegation next year, tell them to reach out to the March of the Living people, because I think they'll be so happy to open arms. They would welcome you. But anyway, I have like 20 seconds now. But I think the biggest thing, I'm sorry.
Your time is
I'm
to make
sorry.
20
I'm
seconds.
so
That was
sorry.
20 seconds ago.
No, I think the biggest impact was just that learning about it, and also just realizing that the Jewish people are fearful, and it is so important as Christians to love them and stand with them, and just to never have this happen again, and show them that we are going to be there for them no matter what, even though the world is against them. It gave me more boldness to be like, I'm going to stand with the truth. I'm going to stand with the Jewish people because God loves them with a special love.
Boy, that
Amazing.
30 seconds became a minute and a half.
And she did a great job.
And we loved every second of it.
K-Mac,
you.
thank you so much for being with us and sharing about your experience. It was very special. Thank you.
Thank you for having
Now, you
me.
can stay if you want, or you're a busy person. The board, BOARD, is meeting in just a couple hours from now, so I know you have stuff to do, but we're grateful that you're here.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
Of course,
Thank
of course.
you so much.
So, Steve, first we want to, before we get to talking about Jericho, we're
But
gonna
before we
you
do
haven't.
that,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, before we do that, Dave is the board chair in the United States and the vice chair here in Canada. But we don't get board members to come here often. I would just like to hear quickly your call to the ministry. This isn't what you were trained for. First, tell us what you did before you retired and what your involvement in Friends of Israel entails.
Here, Dave, you can take that mic. You can just, there you go, hold it up.
Before, career. You asked me about my career.
Yes.
My career was as an airport engineer.
What is an airport engineer?
That's a specialty. It's a civil engineering specialty, and there weren't many universities training for it, and so it's an on-the-job training. And I went to Drexel University They had a cooperative program where you would work for employers who would hire students for summer or 6-month periods. I happened to take a training period at Philadelphia International Airport, and that started my career in airport engineering.
So you worked at the Philadelphia airport.
I did. I actually worked for the city of Philadelphia at the time. Everybody always asks, "Oh, you get free flights?" No, you don't get free flights.
Bupkis.
Yeah, that's it. Bupkis
He gets to
is
watch
right.
them land.
That's right. I watched.
Front row seat.
I made built the runways. I didn't build them with my own hands, but we designed the systems that allowed the aircraft to move around on the airfield. My last closeout of my career, my last job as a project manager for the runway extension, which took the runway from 10,500 feet to 12,000 feet, which meant they could
a lot of cement.
Yeah, then they could go to the Pacific Rim without having to stop someplace and refuel.
Is that just larger planes that were able to land?
No, not. It was to take a bigger fuel load so that they could then fly nonstop to places like Japan and the Philippines and China.
If I understand you right, 2,000 more feet out allowed them to go that far?
Correct.
That's kind of
correct. Because
Not even that. What did you say? It was 10,200 feet?
It was 10,500 to, so it was a 1,500 foot extension.
And they're able to go just
Yeah.
for, that's amazing.
And it doesn't sound like, well, gee, how much could that cost? But that was originally estimated at 120 million.
Wow.
And I think it ended up being more than that, as many projects do. They grow. But because of that, they were adding a lot of storage capacity for aircraft waiting to take off. Mm-hmm. So a lot of queuing areas and taxiways to facilitate movement on the airport. So that's what I did for my career.
And how did you end up with FOI?
Yeah.
Well, I had encounters with the previous executive director, Bill Sutter, on various occasions. And one day, Bill just asked me if I would consider joining the board. I did. I considered it. I prayed about it. And I didn't realize that in so doing and filling out the application that I was going to have to appear before a nominating committee to be accepted.
He left all those details out?
Oh, yes, he left those details out. And this was an august body that's going to interview me. I have people like Cheryl Babb and Elwood McQuaid. Elwood, who just passed away Easter Sunday of this year, but he's been a giant in our ministry.
Cheryl Babb was the president of the Philadelphia College of Bible.
Correct.
And he oversaw the transition to Philadelphia Biblical University.
Correct.
Yeah, amazing,
Correct.
amazing president.
And so he and Jim McLean, who was the former chairman.
Dan Anderson, was he there?
He wasn't on at the time.
Okay.
Bill Sutter was there. They're going to ask me questions. You know, I don't have a Bible training like a Bible school training. Certainly, I have many years of studying the scriptures, but not formal.
Mm-hmm.
But you passed.
I passed because I still remember Elwood asking me a question. What did I feel about Messianic Judaism? Well, I was a greenhorn. I said,
I'm for it.
I said, I don't know what that means. And he explained it to me as people who get saved, Jewish people who get saved, and then want to separate themselves out into a messianic congregation and continue to observe the feasts and whatnot. And I said, well, gee, I know what Paul said about that in Ephesians chapter 2, where he talked about the middle wall of separation, the soreg, being broken down. And to me, I thought that there should not be a separation, and we know we're grafted in. So the Jewish people have not been done away with, though. Paul never said that. Paul said in Romans, they're not cast aside. And
that's what I was going to ask. Your leadership acumen was there. I'm sure that's something that they saw, but you had already had a heart for Israel and the Jewish people.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had Jewish friends growing up. My closest friend at the airport was Jewish, Jeff Lehrbaum. And my friend growing up that I spent a lot of time with was Terry Weiss. So, you know, I've never been anti-Semitic, and I've had that connection. But the other connection was the first church that I attended once I was saved in 1981 was Calvary Baptist Church in Pemberton, New Jersey.
Yeah.
That was Marvin Rosenthal's first and only church before he became the third executive director. And Marv had called a few of the people from that congregation to come down and work at Friends of Israel, attending that church. They were still attending that church. I came in contact, and I was introduced to Israel My Glory magazine, read that faithfully, knew the people of Friends of Israel, and so we would attend. In fact, we would have a speaker at our VBS. We would have a nighttime VBS for a week for adults and kids. We'd have a speaker from Friends of Israel come in. So we had people like Fred Hartman,
North American director before me.
correct, and we had, I'm trying to remember, the fellow who's out at the Master's College now.
Will Varner.
Yeah, Will Varner. Will Varner and others. And so that was my association, long association with Friends of Israel. So I loved the Friends of Israel and didn't know enough about Jewish ministry at that time, but I guess I answered the questions right for Elwood.
I like it.
And that's how I started.
That's great.
That's amazing.
We're glad that you're here, and you've been such a blessing to Friends of Israel. And I've had a chance to sit at the table with you as you lead the board, which is a very strategic board and a very important board to the direction and vision of Friends of Israel. And it's been a joy to sit sometimes next to you. Not because it's only because I picked the chair next to you. It's not, that doesn't mean anything, but to watch you be able to lead and to guide the board is amazing as a chairman down in the United States, not up here in Canada.
Chris has sat at my right hand sometimes.
But by accident. All right. So Steve, today is D-Day.
It is D-Day.
And this is an important day for the history, not only of the world and democracy and freedom, but all of it's kind of wrapped up with the Holocaust as well. All of it, has to do. You have World War II. You've got the Holocaust that was going on. All these things were kind of running together, and it's significant because today marks the 80th anniversary. And I know that there are, even today, I saw watching the news before we came in, there were several veterans of the war of D-Day who are at the beach in Normandy right now during a huge event. And to think, the one thing that came across over and over and over again was their sacrifice, their unity toward the cause of freedom, their willingness to drop everything. I heard a story of a 15-year-old boy who lied about his age and said that he was 18 in order to go fight for his country. My daughter is 13, and I was trying to get my mind wrapped around her in 2 years, or my son's in 4 years lying to go fight for freedom and liberty. And I hope that that's something that still exists among young people. But one of the fears that we also heard too was that young people today, this generation coming up, and I'd say it's even in my generation, they've not experienced a war like that. They don't understand really they don't have an understanding of what they're even fighting for when it comes to freedom and liberty. And so it's an important day, and we're going to take a look at the scriptures really quick and discuss them. But I don't know if you wanted to add something.
Yeah, well, first of all, I had a wonderful opportunity. I grew up hearing about D-Day. My father was plus 2 weeks for D-Day, which means that he was 2 weeks behind the very first, June 6th. My father admired those that went before him. In fact, I think he struggled a little bit, as many did. He wasn't commanded to be the first in line. His job involved other things that put him behind the line. But anybody who has seen movies that try to replicate it, Finding Private Ryan, it's just a unbelievable thing. And Chris, what caught my eye was an NBC News article titled "Americans Bombed His Town. 80 years later, he's commemorating D-Day by flying their flag." And Chris, October 7th and all the things that are going on, and as Israel's defending itself, you're hearing about too many lives, civilian lives lost in terms of fighting the war. And what's a good number in fighting the war? I just thought this was a great reminder. I was watching Hugh Hewitt this morning, who had couple things that our listeners might be interested in. Number one, if you go on YouTube and type in General Eisenhower, there was an interview with Walter Cronkite in 1964. We're going to put it in the show notes.
In the
Chris.
show notes, that's
we'll
right.
Have a link, but you don't even have to wait for
Scroll
that.
down, scroll down. That's what people keep commenting to me. They go, Chris, scroll down.
That's right. For us old people, I looked. Where are the show notes? Anyway, Walter Cronkite interviewed Eisenhower, who, when he retired, never wanted to be known as a president. He wanted to be known as General Eisenhower, because one of his proudest things was being the commander of the Allied armies in leading that. And anyway,
can I say too? This morning when I was listening about Eisenhower, he kept in his pocket the entire time because the whole thing could have gone wrong.
Yep,
He could have-
easily.
And in his pocket was a note that would have been handed off to the president that said, if anything had gone wrong, it's my fault.
Yep.
He would have taken the blame for. I mean, it was in his. Could you think of a I mean, I don't know about generals, politicians, whatever, who would go, it's on me.
He's owning up. He would have owned up.
He had that card ready to drop and say, if it all goes wrong, don't look at anybody else. Look at me.
But the thing that
Go
caught my
ahead.
eye...
Dave wanted to say
That
something.
was a Roosevelt expression, the buck stops here.
That's right, exactly.
And that's what it was, and that's a good adage for us to follow.
100%.
100%. So in this NBC News article, Americans bombed his town. This is a French person in, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Saint-Lô or Saint-Lô, France.
I like your try. Good job.
So the Allies bombed them like crazy. There were all kinds of civilians who died. But every year they welcome Americans back because they realize that even the damage caused to civilians who were innocent civilians was the cost in order to win redemption, if you will, to get France back to being a free country. And the cost was high. We'll have that link to that NBC article. But I thought, Chris, here 80 years ago, there were innocent French who died. They don't hold it against Americans. They celebrate Americans. And really what Israel is doing, and few countries are recognizing that, is by trying to get rid of Hamas. Their arch enemies, they're trying to get rid of an arch enemy of the world. Hamas is not just an enemy of Israel. They're an enemy of the free world as well.
Who report back to Tehran.
That's exactly
They report
right.
back to the Ayatollahs.
So I just thought that was striking as we think of 80 years ago and celebrate what, and by the way, in Canada, I watched yesterday a program, Canadians were at D-Day as well. This wasn't just an American thing, and I really was excited. The program that I was watching was an excellent program commemorating. They were going to show it live today. Canada had a role as well. These were the allies. It wasn't just America, but the allies who came. And Chris, very important, very significant thing for Western civilization, because if they lost, if it didn't work, things would look awful different today. And I have a feeling I wouldn't be here as a Jewish person.
That's a great
wouldn't be
point.
here today.
The final solution, the Jewish problem, would have spread beyond Eastern Europe into Western Europe, which it already was, and probably even further. Steve, when we talk about what you're saying with this Frenchman who flies the American flag, even though his town was bombed out, I love that you connected it with what's going on with Israel and Hamas, because they're looking at the same thing. And I remember just as the war started, we had Bassem Eid, a Palestinian human rights activist who's a friend of our organization. And Bassem is interesting.
An Equip man. He did our Equip course.
That's right. You can actually go back and watch Bassem do a class for FOI Equip. But the reason I bring him up is because we asked him a question. We said, what are the Palestinian people thinking? What do you think is going to be the long-term effects? And he was saying, ultimately, I am hopeful that one day the Palestinian people look back on what Israel is doing right now, and they see that this is where they found their freedom. Because what Israel is doing is not trying to attack the innocent Palestinians. Of course, they are a casualty because of Hamas. But what they are looking for, what he is hoping for, I should say, is that one day, maybe it'll take 80 years. Who knows? But that they'll look back and say, it was the time that Israel freed us from the oppression of Hamas. Now, the problem is that the Allied forces were all unified together in order to defeat Germany and the axis of evil that was coming against the Allied powers. The problem that Israel has is they can't seem to find somebody that will get behind them with 100% agreement on the terms of defeating Hamas, because Hamas is Hitler. That's the thing. Hamas is Hitler. Tehran is Hitler. Putin is doing the same thing. We are seeing what's going on in the world, and we're saying there is an alignment going on that I think should make us all aware of the fact, and anti-Semitism is on the rise. I will say this. There aren't many things that I think Joe Biden says that are good, but he did use a good phrase that stuck with me. He says, history rhymes. It doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And I do think that's true. You're seeing a rhyming of history all over again from the 1940s, even the World War I, World War II, and what we're seeing today. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting piece.
Chris,
you had there.
we're going to put a link because of time is moving. We're going to put a link of the other article that I wanted to discuss. It's actually from Fox. New York City sees rise in hate crimes led by surging anti-Semitism. This is police data. And Chris, we've seen a huge rise everywhere. New York City is 10% Jewish. It's 10% Jewish. And the crime rate, the hate crimes, the anti-Semitism is on the rise there. It is affecting everyone.
100%. Steve, let's turn really quick. Do you want to go to do you want to bring the magazine for next episode, or do you the different Jewish views?
Well, we'll tease them.
Okay, good. We'll do a tease. Good job.
Maybe we could get maybe we could get an eighth listener out of this. But my wife and you, as a matter of fact, separately, my wife went out with Karen McDowell, who is a part-time worker here, and we've known her since 2015, when I was appointed director of the Canadian ministry, and they went to the Jewish neighborhood here. What's the name?
Thornhill.
Thornhill.
I think Thornhill.
And my wife came back with a magazine called
Ha-Mizrahi.
That's right. And so
which is the Eastern, it's the name of the Eastern Jewish, the people that lived in the...
Very observant, too.
Yes.
Very observant.
They come from Iraq. They come from Iran. These are Mizrahi. They come from the East. That's what that means.
That's right. So I opened up the magazine. Chris, this put a smile on my face. Jews with views. You know why I laughed? Jews with views? They only have 5. Are you kidding me? If you said, how many Jews have views? Toronto couldn't hold them. Jews with
GTA
views
would shut down.
So what they do in this magazine is every issue, they have a segment where they ask them a question. Jews with view. We'll I don't know how we can. Maybe we can scan it. I don't know. You'll have to think about how to put that in the show notes.
Oh man, I'm telling you, you're packing these show notes out.
We hey, what can I tell you? 7 listeners. We're gonna get them all we can for free. Anyway, so we'll talk about
that next week. Bring that home with you, please.
We'll talk about it next week.
I love the Ha-Mizrahi. I like that magazine.
That's exactly right. And by the way, in the office, just so you know, Dave, my wife bought all kinds of pastries for the office, which applies to the board members as well.
Okay.
So open access. Well, Chris, we had to decide, what are we going to talk about? It's the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Well, so I said, war's in the Bible. So what came up? Joshua. And as we were discussing it 10 minutes before we went on, in chapter 6, before that, Dave was commenting about, that was an impenetrable wall. They weren't going to win. It seemed like it wasn't going to happen. That kind of correlates with D-Day.
Yeah, Normandy.
And sure enough, the first verse in chapter 6, it says, now Jericho was securely shut up.
That's right. Yeah.
You can't state it any clearer than that. A wall, Chris, archaeologists say that wall was so wide that whole chariots 6 wide could extend on that wall. People lived in the wall.
Walls, yeah, exactly. There were homes in the wall, yeah.
Homes, I can't even comprehend that. But chapter 6, so Jericho is securely shut up. Because of the children of Israel, none went out and none came in. So they saw 600,000 men, their wives, their kids. They saw this mass of people. They shut the doors and they said, ain't going to happen. Right? We know that. And so now the Lord said to Joshua, pause right there. The Lord said to Joshua, if the Lord says something to you and you know it's the Lord as he did, it doesn't matter what he's asking you. It's going to happen.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And Joshua knew that much. And so the Lord said to Joshua, see, I've given Jericho into your hand. I wouldn't wait. See, I see a closed up wall that I can't get through. It's a done deal. Isn't that true?
Yes.
It's a done deal. Into your hand, it's king, the mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city, all you men of war. You shall go around the city once. This shall you do 6 days. We're going to take so you can see Eisenhower. We're taking the beach.
Yeah.
Here's what I want you to do. Everybody march around the water.
Yeah. Just get the boats going in a circle.
Just go in a circle. Everything will be fine. Now, obviously, I'm making light of something very serious, but imagine getting your orders to march around the wall. Just stay far enough away. They're not going to hurt you, but march. And what did they do, Chris?
They marched.
How many days?
7 days.
Well, 6 days they did, but
and
then
the
there was a
seventh day
change of order.
That's right.
Now they had to blow the trumpets. They had to blow the trumpets, and now kids sing Sunday school songs, and the walls came tumbling down.
Right.
But you know, Chris, what I've often told people is that we have inspired miracles that we know about. In other words, this was a miracle. It's the inspired word of God. And so we would say this miracle is under the auspices of the inerrant word of God. But God's not through with doing miracles. And in a historic sense, we have seen the history of Israel, which, in my opinion, so Dave, you're the vice chair in Canada. You could correct me, Chris. You went to seminary, I didn't. You could correct me if I'm wrong. But as I look at what happened here, and I look at the 6-Day War and hear some stories, or I hear even defending on October 7th, what I would deem somehow, some way, miracles in the midst of awful things were just as miraculous, even though this is under the inspired word of God. Do you understand what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah.
Well, tell me if you agree or disagree.
Oh, yes, I agree perfectly with that.
Yeah, when you look at the history of what happened, number one, the testimony of God's faithfulness to the Jewish people is a miracle.
100%.
If you just want to start with the basic premise of the Jewish people, they should not be here. What do they call those people? Anthropologists, the people who study human history. And the Jewish people should have assimilated a long time ago, or they should have been annihilated a long time ago.
100%.
The very presence that you are 99% Jewish and you're sitting across from me, I don't know of 99% Assyrian, a 99% Babylonian, a 99% even Egyptian from that time period. They don't exist. They're gone. They assimilated, they migrated, they, whatever. Here you are, a testament to God's faithfulness to a promise.
And I worked very hard at that,
I can tell. Look at you're relaxed. You got your legs crossed.
When I go to a church, I often say, do you want to prove the validity of the Bible? Get yourself a Jew. And here I am.
The heaven-bound Hebrew is here. I do want to say, though, that, there are these miraculous moments of Israel being outnumbered 10-1. Outnumbered 10-1, and the majority of people or a vast number of people fighting in the Independence War of 1948, Holocaust survivors. I mean, they come from Eastern Europe, they make their way to Israel, and they're handed a gun and they're told, now fight for your freedom. That's not the greatest part. They were always fighting. Israel was always fighting with their arms tied behind their back, just like I feel like they are today in many ways. And so, again, you have this amazing testament to God's protection and provision, from the very fact that the Jewish people still exist to the fact that Israel. I mean, one of the reasons that Truman's advisors didn't want Truman to accept or recognize the Jewish state was not because they were anti-Semitic. I don't believe that was the reason why. It was because they said, these people will be wiped off the map if you accept them. If you accept them as a Jewish state, there's going to be an independence war, and they're going to get pushed into the sea, because when I read the headlines, they're going to be outnumbered 10-1. It's a lose-lose situation. Don't do this. And he did it anyway, and then Israel won. That sets a standard, because it does make you kind of, even if you're a secular atheist individual, it does kind of make you have to look up and go, God, are you there? What's going on? And it happened over and over again. 1948, 1967, 1973. So again, you have these, I like that you brought this up, these modern miracles of God.
The other thing, Chris, and I don't know, but I do know. So that's I don't know, but I do know. Here's what I don't know. I don't know how many or if any people have gotten saved since October 7th, just because of the situation. I do know that the gospel has been preached in the midst of that war. And what happened here in Joshua is that a Gentile and her family get saved.
Yeah, that's true.
They come to know the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob because of the testimony of what the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has done by redeeming his people out of the most powerful nation on the planet. And Chris, one thing we know as we pray for Israel, I was just leading our chapel as I do every Wednesday, and coming on in Israel was Menno Kalisher and his son, Danny. And I always ask them, give us the latest boots on the ground. They're fighting a battle to the north. Hezbollah is attacking more and more. All the experts will say in Israel, it's not if there's going to be a war with Hezbollah, it's when it's going to be. Then we have Rafah and the battle that's going on there. The sons and daughters of Israel putting their life on the line. But here's what I do know. The gospel is being preached, and it's being preached in the middle of the war. And I'm confident, I can't prove it, but I'm confident that God is gathering his people in the midst. So as Joseph said, what you meant for evil, terrible evil. We don't want war. It's horrible. But war went on. I believe there's going to be sheep that are brought in to the fold.
You're talking about Jewish people returning to the homeland.
That and people coming to know him.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
I think it all plays a role. Chris, all these events that take place, we at Friends of Israel would say, these are staging times. The countries, the people are aligning to what God is ultimately going to do at the end.
That's amazing. So, who would have thought we'd be talking about Joshua 7 or Joshua 6 today, the battle at Jericho? But
we did
fitting.
2 hours ago. We did. I can tell you that.
But very fitting for today, and we definitely want to pay tribute to those who fought on D-Day, who lost their lives on D-Day, and those veterans who are there today, still standing as a testimony to their desire to want to fight for freedom. They fought, they unified, and defeated Hitler and his forces. And so again, it's important for us to remember that, and I'm glad that we were able to do that. And I wish I had my computer set up, because I'd love to play Eisenhower's prayer, because he did a prayer asking Almighty God to protect and give guidance.
Well, I think I have it here. Here it is. Almighty God, our sons, pride of our nation this day, have set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic, our religion, and our civilization, and to set free a suffering humanity. Lead them straight and true. Give strength to their arms, stoutness to their hearts, steadfastness in their faith. So that's a portion of it. We'll put it in the show notes, Chris.
It's going to be long show notes. All right, hey, Steve, I think for time's sake, we need to do the Yiddish word.
Yiddish word of the day.
All right, so here we go. The music is on, Steve, because you can't hear it.
But then
we got the Yiddish word of the day going.
Well, as I think about the D-Day and what so many Western nations did to free us of tyranny from the Nazis, they did it for them, and they did it for their Kindelah, their children.
Kindelah?
Kindelah. Kinder is child, Kindelah, children.
So that's where kindergarten comes from.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
from the German, I suspect. But Kindelah is the children. And so as we think of the war going on in Israel, the war in Ukraine, the people are fighting for the next generation to provide for them stability and safety and peace. And what the Israelis are fighting now is for really their homeland. They're fighting for their very homeland so their children and children's children could live in peace.
Live in peace and even just be safe living in there. Feel the sense of safety, shalom in their country.
Amen.
Steve, Kindelah.
Kindelah.
All right, Kindelah. Hey, everybody, thank you so
Steve.
much.
Thanks for
You're
being
welcome.
here.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, this is fantastic. Hey, everybody, be sure to go to foiequip.org, and there you can register for our upcoming classes, which is actually this June. We're going to be doing a class on the fact that anti-Semitism knows no party. That's right. We're going to be looking at both sides of the spectrum in anti-Semitism and how we can catch what anti-Semitism is so that we can stand up against it. Again, you go to FOI Equip to register for that class coming up this month, actually. Oh, yeah, I got to get an email out so people come, Steve. It's just crossing my mind right now. Okay, so be sure to go to FOI Equip. I want to thank all of our guests. Dave, thanks for being with us. And everybody, hey, we'll see you next week.